Hello. In this video, I'm going to run through what you need to know as you approach the Edexcel A Level History exams, papers 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to run through each paper and just discuss the approach that I would suggest for each question. So this is aimed at people who are coming towards those exams, reaching those exams, and just looking for a bit of a reminder of the kind of key skills and what to expect in the exam. So I hope it's helpful. In terms of the structure, I'm going to give an overview of each paper, then I'm going to walk through paper 1, paper 2, and then paper 3, and then I'm going to give some kind of A-star kind of final tips. So I am doing this quite quickly. Obviously, I've got much more detailed videos on each different element of all of these different exam papers, so please have a look at my playlist for it with exam technique, which is linked in the description below if you want a much more detailed overview. So in terms of the three different papers, paper 1 and paper 3 have 3 sections, paper 2 just has 2 sections. So paper 1 is a depth essay, breadth essay, and then interpretations question. Paper 2 is a source question and then a depth essay. Paper 3 is a source question, a depth essay, then a breadth essay. And as it says here, each question is worth 20 marks and each question has 45 minutes. It works out as 45 minutes per question. So paper 1 is 2 hours 15, paper 2 is 1 hour 30, and paper 3 is 2 hours 15. So if we start off with paper 1, Section A is the depth essay, and there's a choice, there's 2 questions, and you choose one. So a reminder of the structure for this question: intro, 3 paragraphs, and conclusion. So in your intro, you're doing context, definition, argument. In terms of your internal paragraphs, usually 3 paragraphs is the right number. Very, very rarely you might have a question where you only need to do 2 paragraphs. Sometimes you might want to do 4, but usually 3 is the number of paragraphs that I would suggest in terms of internal paragraphs. Following the point, evidence judgment, evidence judgment, evidence judgment, summary structure, where you're linking back to the factor in the question, the issue in the question consistently. And then writing a conclusion where you're giving your opinion on the question and which is the most important factor, if it's a factor, or how far you agree with the question. So that's the basic essay structure. And as I said previously, have a look at the videos that I've done on essays, and I've got a breakdown on introductions, paragraphs, conclusions, all different aspects of essay writing that you can look at for more information on that. Section B is a breadth essay for paper 1, so it covers a broader period of time, and the structure for the essay is exactly the same: intro, 3 paragraphs, conclusion. The main difference I would say for this is when you are planning and writing your essay, just ensure for the paper 1 section B essay that you do get that coverage in terms of time period. So it is a breadth question, so the examiners are looking for you to cover more of a range of evidence. I'll talk more about that for paper 3 section C when we get to that later in the video. Finally, for paper 1, section C is the interpretations question. So for this question, you have 2 interpretations, and you are looking to really weigh up the arguments of the interpretations using your own knowledge. So following this structure, no intro, point, quote, evidence judgment, quote, evidence judgment, quote, evidence judgment, summary. So paragraph 1 on interpretation 1 and paragraph 2 on interpretation 2, and then the conclusion is very important, where you're answering the question, you're saying which extract is most convincing, and you're saying why do they differ. And that's almost always because of they're focusing on different things or they've got different scope. As it says here, the key word for this question is convincing. How convincing are these extracts? So I hope that's helpful in terms of a really, really quick run through of paper 1. Let's move on to paper 2. So paper 2 has just got 2 sections, A and B. A is a source question where you've got 2 sources that are both that you're asked to look at one inquiry for. So there's one question that you're looking at these 2 sources for. In terms of the structure, we've got no introduction. You don't need to do an intro for the source question. Paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 follow the same structure. They are looking at each source separately. Again, I've done a video on this technique that you can look at and get much more of a detailed run through of this. But they follow this structure where it's point, quote, inference, evidence, judgment, inference, evidence, judgment. Then we discuss the provenance, and then we do an overall summary. How valuable are the sources for the inquiry? Okay, and then paragraph 3, we look at the sources together and think about how do they complement each other. Is there a point of agreement? And then think about the different perspectives that they offer. So is one an insider, one's an outsider? Is one at the time, another one's in hindsight, etc. And then we write a conclusion where we run through the value of the sources separately and then together. And then section B of paper 2 is the depth essay again. So it's following the same structure as paper 1 essays. Intro, 3 paragraphs, conclusion. And as it says here, there's a choice of 2 and you choose 1. So then we move on to paper 3. Paper 3 has got 3 sections and they follow this structure. So section A is a source question. Section B is a depth essay. Section C is a breadth essay. So for paper 3, section A source questions, you have 1 source, but there's 2 ways that you're being asked to look at it, 2 inquiries. So following this structure, again, I've done a video on this that you can look at. No intro. Paragraph 1 is focused on inquiry 1. Paragraph 2 is focused on inquiry 2. Paragraph 3 is looking at the provenance of the source for both inquiries. The key word for source questions is value. So what we're doing in paragraphs 1 and 2 is we're making inferences. I suggest making 3 inferences, using our own knowledge to kind of test those inferences, reaching judgments on the value of the source, and then writing a summary. And then paragraph 3 is the provenance paragraph, where we're discussing the impact of the provenance on the value of the source for each inquiry. And then a conclusion, which gives an answer to the question of which inquiry is the source most valuable for. And then section B is the depth essay, so just the same as paper 1 and paper 2. Intro, 3 paragraphs, and conclusion. Section C is a breadth essay. Again, the same structure, but the key tip for paper 3, section C is really ensuring you get that coverage, that you cover the whole time period. To reach level 5, you need to cover 75% of the years in question. So as you're planning your essay, think about, have I covered evidence from the early, middle, and late periods? Okay, so that's paper 1, 2, and 3 breakdown. Let's just go through some final kind of tips, reminders to get to that top level. Make sure that you plan before you write. 5 minutes planning, I would suggest, for essays, 10 minutes for interpretations or source questions. Planning is really, really, really important. It ensures that you have a consistent line of argument, and it just gives you time to think through what your argument's going to be and what your criteria will be, which definitions you're going to make, ensuring that you've got that solid structure. That moves on to the next point. Structure is very important. As I've said, for the regular essays, intro, 3 paragraphs, conclusion. For the source questions and the interpretations questions, following these suggested structures will really ensure that you are adhering to the criteria of the mark scheme. You're making those inferences in the source questions, or you're using your own knowledge to reach a judgment on the value of the sources. Always, always, always write a conclusion. If you're running out of time and you can't quite finish your last paragraph, please write a conclusion. That really does make a difference. So it's better to have a conclusion and an unfinished 3rd paragraph than to have a finished 3rd paragraph and no conclusion. And then finally, the 3 golden rules: link back to the question consistently, both the issue in question and the factor in question. Always, always explain why your argument is the case, explain why other things aren't as important as your argument. And the 3rd golden rule is make the examiner's job as easy as possible, using dates to signpost your evidence, using words like inference or provenance in the source questions, linking back to the keywords like convincing in the interpretation question or value in the source questions. Signpost things, make the examiner's job as easy as possible. Following a clear structure really does help with that. So I hope that's been helpful. Please do check out my other videos for more detail. Thanks for listening.